Welcome, Vikings fans. You are tuned into the inaugural episode of the BiteSizeVikes podcast right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. We got a lot to cover today. We are just days away from the season opener, so we're going to get into a full season preview for the team. We're going to do some deep looks into the offense, defense. We'll even get into some schedule predictions coming up next. All right, and we are here. The music is looping on me. Uh, First, I'd be remiss not to mention Kyle Rudolph will be retiring, a Minnesota Viking. It's going to be week 3. It sounds like at U.S. Bank that he'll be honored. Um, great career as a Viking. 12 years in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty cool that he's coming back to retire as part of the purple. You love when guys do that and kind of come back to the team that really had their heart. Couple of throwaway years in New York we won't talk about. So we'll welcome him back. So I'm super excited about that. Not a ton else on the news front, frankly. I'm sure a lot of you are caught up on the Hawkinson deal, which I thought was great value, by the way. I would have been perfectly fine with him resetting the market even fully. On a annual average value basis, it's top 2 in as a tight end in the NFL. But if you look at the structure of it, actually saved a few million on this year's cap with the extension, pushed some of that into signing bonus, prorated that out a little bit. And it could be it's 4 years, 66 in new money, amounts to 5 years, 75, including this season. And it could be up to 68.5 million in new money, so 2.5 mil in incentive, which I think is great value for a guy who is one of the best tight ends in the National Football League. And at the end of this contract, he'll still only be 29 years old, or just turning 30. I don't know what month he's born in, but he'll still be really young. I mean, this is kind of thematic with the current regime with Kwesi. I mean, you look at guys he's actually brought in, like Davenport, Byron Murphy. These guys are mid-20s, just about to enter their prime. These are the type of guys he's paying on the open market. He's not finding stopgap veterans and trying to piece things together. He wants pieces that will be part of this team going forward, which I love. Outside of that, we're just waiting on the JJ extension, give him whatever he wants. But that's a fine segue into the offense, which we're going to start with. So I will pull up the depth chart here, just so we have something of a visual aid as I go through some of these things. But basically, this should be a top 5 unit. It's going to take some things going seriously wrong, and we'll get into what those things could be, more likely than others. But it's a unit that was highly productive last year, 5th in EPA per attempt, 8th in EPA per dropback. Obviously, a great passing group. With Dalvin Cook gone, a lot of national talking heads are expecting a decline in the rushing production, which, by the way, by volume, yeah, he was 6th in the league in yards, in total yards last year, but it wasn't good play to play. This team ran for negative yards on over 25% of run plays last year. 25, a quarter of the time, they're getting negative yardage last season, which is unbelievable. It was a pretty good run blocking group on the offensive line. And you add a guy like Josh Oliver to that, which should be even better. You've also got another year of continuity with these same 5 starters, year 2 for all 5 of those guys together, which will be huge, especially on that unit. But you look at some of the advanced metrics surrounding Dalvin Cook, and he was not good. He wasn't Dalvin Cook good for sure, but he was close to dead last in stuff like yards per carry over expected, um, EPA per rush, things like that. And he wasn't breaking tackles like he used to. The broken tackle rate was down. Obviously, he had some monster plays. He's still an excellent back, but would have been a little over $14 million cap hit this season. And I think you feel a lot better about Alexander Mattison back on that small 2-year deal. To and with Madison, it could be pretty similar production. Again, younger, um, has worked under Dalvin Cook for several seasons now, 4 to be exact, just moving into his second contract. And I've got pretty high hopes for him. I like Ty Chandler as well, but the team, it would take a lot for us to see a drop. It would take a big injury to a key position or a key player, or multiple, to see much of a drop off in the passing game, in my opinion. And it's also going to look a little different. So let's talk about that. Um, Now, again, a lot of this is really contingent upon the health and inferred improvement of this interior offensive line. This is a top 3 tackle duo in the league with Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. But the interior of this offensive line was responsible for the lion's share of the QB hits that Kirk Cousins took last year. I'm sure a lot of you recall the stat. Kirk Cousins was the most hit quarterback in the National Football League last year. And just adamantium bones on this guy. He got up every single time. But 35 this season. He can't take that many hits 2 years in a row, and it's just not sustainable. We need to shore that up. We need stronger protection from the interior specifically. I don't think I do think we're going to see improvement. I don't think we're going to see Garrett Bradbury and Ezra Cleveland stonewall Dexter Lawrence. It's not going to be that's still going to be an issue. But if we have marginal improvement, Kirk takes a few less hits, has a little bit more time for things to develop downfield, the weapons are really going to pop in this offense. So that's key number 1, is just some sort of marginal improvement from this interior of the offensive line. That's really the main weak spot in this group. The weapons are great. We'll talk about the run game a little bit more. But the offensive line is also really polarizing nationally. I was looking around at some offensive line rankings, which I just find interesting, but they were anywhere on fantasypros.com. It was the 28th ranked unit. For PFF, they were 15th, right in the middle of the pack. And then on lineups.com, 11th. They were outside of the top 10 on Fox. They only ranked 10. But, I mean, you see a lot of differing opinions there. When we did our preseason offensive line rankings on Necessary Roughness, I had them at 10. Which check out Necessary Roughness on Tuesday nights. That's our flagship NFL program right here on Bite Size Sports. But it's a polarizing group. And it's really about how much you weigh the tackle duo against the interior, which again is strength, weakness, and how you feel about this depth. I mean, looking at the depth chart here, you've got Blake Brandel, Austin Schlottman, Oli Udoh, David Kessenberry, Chris Reed, who's injured at the moment. Kessenberry brought over, was with the Bills last season. Started off with Houston, was not terrible there. Actually beat, I think it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Kessenberry anyway. So great story on him. He's 32. Bills fans will tell you we should not be excited about him, but nobody's expecting him to start. I think he's pretty decent depth, and just kind of bolsters that group behind. But yeah, there's not any world beaters here. I think you're worried if we have any injuries along the front. Although Blake Brandon looked pretty good at guard in the preseason. I think we could probably stomach an Ezra Cleveland or an Ed Ingram injury and see one of those guys fill in, whether it's, even if it's Schlotman at center for Bradbury, as much as I like Bradbury as a signal caller up front and a protection caller. I don't think we're seeing as big of a drop off there than if we were to lose Darisaw or Brian O'Neill and have to resort to Oli Udoh or Blake Brandel at tackle. Now, Udoh was fine in the Giants playoff game, and he is much better at tackle. We don't want to see him at guard ever again, right? But this group, everything hinges on this group, frankly. I mean, this offense can go as far as the interior of this group allows. So the health and the improvement of these guys is the biggest X factor, in my opinion. Another big X factor is Jordan Addison. I famously on the network had a bit of a breakdown at the time of drafting Addison, and it's only because I was so high on some of those defensive backs that were available, like Brian Branch, Deonte Banks, even like a Nolan Smith out of Georgia at edge. I thought would have been a more interesting play, even with Zadarius Smith technically still on the roster at that point. But I've come around on it a little bit, and especially with what we're left with now with depth at wide receiver, it'd be tough to just have Jefferson, Osborne. Maybe they would have brought in a vet wide receiver 3 to fill out that room, but I think he liked the dynamism that a duo of Jefferson and Addison can bring. And I think you'll be able to expose some of the things that hindered the Vikings offense when Jefferson got all that attention, when you saw the cover 1 double, when you saw the north-south double team, when you saw the blanket coverage and the safety help over Jefferson. Addison's a guy who can make you pay for that, but he's not a guy who's going to physically get through press coverage. He's going to have to win in slightly different ways. And I think he'll be able to pick up a lot from Keenan McCardell, wide receiver coach. He'll be able to pick up a lot from Justin Jefferson, which should help. And he's flashed in the preseason. I think we do have a really good wide receiver on our hands. Just how good could make a huge difference in how this offense functions, really. I mean, if he really bursts onto the scene, saying Jefferson is not often an apt comparison or expectation, but if he pops right onto the scene like Jefferson did, not necessarily like how it took a while for Diggs to get there, took two weeks for Jefferson to really crack the starting lineup. Addison's probably going to be wide receiver 2 day 1. You'll probably see KJ in there more often when they go to their 12 or 21 personnel because he's a better blocker. But I think Addison is going to be inside. He's going to be outside, and he's going to run every route in the tree. I'm really going to be we're going to be able to mirror Jefferson and Addison, and just that secondary true threat. If he is that, this offense, the sky's really the limit, especially if that O-line holds up. But even if he's just okay, if it's the same kind of production and the same kind of effect we got from Adam Thielen, that'd probably be fine. Again, this was a great unit last year. But I think he'll be able to stress the defense in different ways than Adam did, particularly later in his career. So really excited to see what we can get there. That's another big X factor for me is Jordan Addison. But mainly, this offense will be elite if the running game can be competent and consistently threatening. There was a lot's been made about the addition of Josh Oliver, paying 3 years, 21 or so to a tight end 2 to go along with Hockenson, who just got his big deal. You re-sign C.J. Ham and keep 4 running backs, including him. You also got Kenny on IR. That sort of signals that they're going towards a little bit more of that 49ers style offense than the Rams offense, and that just means heavier personnel. 2 tight ends, 2 backs, in a formation. 12, 21 personnel, one back, two tight ends, two backs, one tight end, maybe even some 22. Now, I don't think they're going to have come out in like 32 empty with like the way Juszczyk splits all the way out wide. I don't think we'll get that crazy with CJ Ham. But you will see some more heavier personnel. The Vikings ran 11 personnel at the 5th highest rate last season, with 3 wide receivers. They lived in it. It was almost over 3/4 of the time that they were in 11. I don't think it'll be that high this season. And one thing about Justin Jefferson is he punishes single coverage. He makes you pay. And if that running game is threatening enough, you can force the defense's hand into playing a guy like Justin Jefferson one-on-one. If you can force them to creep a safety down into the box, force them into a single high shell, and you're getting cover 1 or cover 3, or if it's a deep third or even just straight up man coverage on the outside, I trust Justin Jefferson to win that matchup 95% of the time. And again, opposite that, if you continue to punish that and force them back into a too high shell, force them back into a bracket safety look on Jefferson's side, make them put a roof on things and lighten up the box, even in your heavier personnel, they might have to lighten the box just because of the threat of Jefferson. They can't put anybody on an island out there. And no, Jair Alexander's not going to work. He wasn't out there alone, Twitter. There's no answer for that. And so it's, again, you do these kind of moves, re-sign CJ Ham, add a Josh Oliver, draft a Jordan Addison to give yourself more versatility on the offensive side, be able to do more things at a high level and dictate to the defense in that sense. You don't even need, it's not even just the personnel, because we can come out on our heavy personnel all we want, but if we can't be, if the defense is gap sound and we can't get a push and we can't punish them for light boxes, then suddenly, we don't have either of those advantages. So if the run game clicks and they're able to be effective, we should see some more power run this year. It was almost all mid to wide zone last year, a lot of it to the weak side. If we can run some strong power off of a guy like Josh Oliver, to the strong side to the left with Darisaw in Cleveland, who's an excellent run blocker, and use Hawkinson in different ways as a pass catcher out of heavier personnel, you'll also be able to punish linebackers who have to crowd that box at the threat of the run game, and all of a sudden you've got one of the best receiving tight ends in football on a pretty hopeless linebacker in space. So again, that the run defense will just be able, or the rushing offense, the consistency, the efficiency will unlock really everything for this offense. It's still going to function just fine if the run game is mediocre. It was mediocre last year. And the passing offense was great, but it's not only going to buy Kirk time on play action, on 7-step drops, it's going to buy the Vikings just more ways to attack you. And that's the name of the game in football. They'll just be, it gives you a queen on the chessboard, and they didn't quite have that last year. It was a lot of, hey, JJ, go win. And oftentimes he would, but I think we'll get a lot more diverse on the offensive side of the ball this year, and it's just going to stress defenses in a way that we really didn't last year. So I'm really high in the offensive group. Should be a top 5 unit. Things can go wrong, but it should be a top 5 unit and really carry this team to spoilers to possibly contend this year. I think it's a playoff team. And if it's really a high flying offense, we'll be playing in late December and early January and making some noise, especially in an NFC that's not particularly strong. So let's jump over to the defense. Brian Flores, especially relative to Ed Donatel, is going to have everybody's hair lit on fire on the defensive side of the ball. These guys are going to be flying around. They're going to be playing. They're going to be playing with intensity. They're going to be playing downhill. They're going to be playing aggressive. And they're not going to be playing on their heels like almost every defender was last year under Ed Donatel. There's going to be a ton of disguise. The line of scrimmage is going to be crowded. Whether he sends everybody or not, the line of scrimmage is going to be crowded, and that offensive line is going to have to over communicate, and they're going to have to be ready for everything. Out of the lazy, too high quarters looks pre-snap that Ed Donatel would roll out there in with no disguise, the offense knew what they had to be ready for several seconds before the snap. They don't know what's coming with Brian Flores until the ball's already snapped. And after the play's over, sometimes they don't even know how many guys came. You'll see 7-0, 8-0 type of looks from Brian Flores with 7, 8 guys on the line of scrimmage. Maybe only 2 of them have their hand in the dirt. You have no idea where everybody's coming from. And then, you get your read pre-snap and you're maybe the right guard. You get your read pre-snap. All of a sudden, post-snap, you get a looper. You see a linebacker come out of your peripheral, and then all of a sudden you're in somebody's chest. And the play ends, and you go, how many guys even came? Maybe it's a throw into the dirt by the quarterback. Maybe he didn't have time. And as a guard, either you could think all 8 of them came, and that's why the pressure got there so fast, or maybe only 4 came, maybe only 5 came, and you just didn't know where it was coming from. So it felt like just as many. And he'll have guys drop late out of that, and that's all well and good. That's going to be great to have that change for change's sake. And with that, you'll be able to dictate to the offense a little bit. You'll be able to put them on their heels and keep them guessing. But if they guess right, it falls on guys like Caleb Evans to hold up in man coverage down the field. It falls on guys like Byron Murphy, in whom I'm pretty confident to do so, actually. But Mekhi Blackman, Andrew Booth. Blackman, by the way, I think is ahead of Booth on the depth chart by now. This might need a little bit of editing here, but that's when it gets dicey. When you don't have Xavier Howard on the back end, when you don't have a J.C. Jackson on the back end, that's when it's a little difficult to hold up in cover 0 or, cover one dog, which he likes to run a lot, which is just sending a fifth rusher with a center field safety over top and man across the board. It'll be a more exciting defense to watch, and it'll generate chaos, which will make offenses uncomfortable. It'll make them think. Offenses were able to get into such a rhythm against the Donatel defenses. And that was because they were seeing such consistent looks. It was so quarters heavy. It was so quarter half heavy. This team actually only ran cover 1 on 3rd down at about a 23% clip. So even on 3rd down, they didn't man up. They didn't send pressure. Ed Donatel's defense was 25th in 3rd down blitz rate. That's going to be a lot higher under Brian Flores. He might blitz that often on 1st down. And again, it's just going to be a different animal. You'll be able to dictate to the offense, make them adjust to you, as opposed to the other way around. And I'm excited for it. I think he'll put these guys in positions to succeed. He's not going to pigeonhole them into, certain roles that he's familiar with. He's not going to come over with the idea of the Fangio scheme, you need the players to be able to run that type of defense. You need a Jalen Ramsey, you need an Aaron Donald. Um, you can't one of those types of defenses where you have to play a gap and a half in the run game with a light box, and you have to be able to have some of the best zone defending defensive backs in the league. It's good when you have those guys, because that's the stress points of the defense. But it's just difficult to run something like that when you're going through changes in personnel. You're bringing guys into that scheme for their first year. Brian Flores is going to have them playing a little bit more loose. And for what it's worth, these young guys are going to need that. They're going to have structure, but they're going to be able to just play ball and go out and hit guys and go out and make plays and go out and disrupt the football game. So that's ultimately what we want to see. A guy like Jay Ward is going to be really fun to see. You might see him play a lot of slot corner. The slot nickel corner is going to be It's going to be interesting to see who we see there. Jay Ward. I mean, you'll probably see Byron Murphy on the inside, matchup dependently. Might see Mekhi Blackmon in the slot. We've seen Andrew Booth in the slot a little bit. Maybe even Josh Metellus in the slot. It could get really, really interesting. I'm not a huge fan of Bynum in the slot. He was a college cornerback, but only played on the boundary. 4'6", 40. Tough to put him in a spot where the receiver has a two-way go like that. I like a guy who's a little bit stickier, like Byron Murphy's been, or a guy who really can make an impact in the run game from the apex defender position, like a Jay Ward, or even a Lewis Seen roll into the overhang. And I think we're going to see all of that. We're going to see 3-4 safeties on the field in dime looks. It's just going to be really fun. He just gets creative, and I think if you don't put the pressure on these guys to handle zone responsibilities and pass things off to the degree that Donatel did right away, they're just going to be hooping out there, which is going to be really, really fun to see. And it could be a really good growth year for a lot of these young guys. I think you'll see Danielle Hunter wreak havoc. I'm excited to see what type of positions he's able to put Marcus Davenport in. Since 2020, Marcus Davenport's actually 18th in pressure rate in the entire league, having missed some games, of course. But I mean, that's Danielle Hunter's 25th in pressure rate since 2020. So Marcus Davenport is a legit disruptor when he's healthy. So I really liked that gamble by Kwesi. And I like what Byron Murphy is going to be able to allow us to do defensively. I think you'll see him really be that number one corner. He'll probably shadow wide receiver ones unless we see a big step up from a guy like Mekhi Blackmon. But I think a lot will hinge on Byron Murphy's ability to stick number one receivers, and just to, whether he's shadowing, whether he's playing aside, to at least maybe take that first read away and buy the blitz a half a second to get there. But I'm excited to see Ivan Pace in action. I think Brian Asamoah is going to be right in his element in this defense. And if we get a little bit of growth from a guy like Dean Lowry, or a Chris Tunger or a Jaquelin Roy, and we can generate a little bit of interior pressure, maybe sending 4, and actually get a little bit of a push, because even when Za'Darius and Daniil were getting there and turning the corner, guys could just step up. So another thing that's going to be really important is a little bit of interior pressure. It's what vexes us on the other side of the ball. So it is it's going to be crucial, and it could change a lot of things, could really raise the floor of this defense. So when we come back, we'll have my friend and colleague Dave joining me to go through schedule predictions for the final segment of Bite Size Vikes. Stay right where you're at. And we are back. Now I'm joined by my friend and colleague Dave, aka Purple Hulk. You can follow him over on Minnesota Sports Talk on YouTube, and maybe catch me over there every once in a while, talking a little bit of Vikes.
Yeah, I miss you, Johnny. I haven't seen you in a while. What's the deal?
Yeah, it's been busy. It's been busy, but we're getting back into it. We're gonna be crushing it this season. If you're a Vikings fan, come join Dave, myself, and others at Skullfest on Saturday. What the
5 p.m.
Northeast
at the
Palace?
Northeast Palace.
Northeast Palace.
It's in
Dave's
the
got it.
Northeast of Minneapolis, not the Southeast, the Northeast Palace.
Drive
5
northeast, you'll
p.m.
find it. But we'll be live talking with some listeners and things like that, and it'll be a good time. So if you're a Vikings fan, come on down. But before that, we've got to preview this season for our Minnesota Vikings. You and I have gone through this schedule a little bit together on Skull World Live on your channel, but this is the final draft. This is my prediction.
It's starting to get
today.
tougher and tougher to whittle it down from 17-0, Johnny. I'm not gonna.
I know, right?
Lie.
I know, right? This is the year. My father-in-law is a Steelers fan, and that's his joke with me when he brings up the Vikings. He'll be like, "This is the year, right?" And it always is. It always is the year. But first of all, you and I are going to be at this game. We got the Bucks at home. We might beat them by 50, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm coming, so they got to.
Yeah.
Although I haven't been lucky the last two times. I was at the last two games I went to was the last game of the year against the Bears in 2019. We didn't play any starters and we lost that game, although we almost won. And then before that was Michael Vick's rookie year, and he had that overtime touchdown run.
You were at that game.
Yeah, I was at that game.
That's a rough one.
However, we did one game. We won the division, starting Sean Salisbury against, and Warren Moon was out, and we were starting Salisbury against Steve Young, and we won. But Steve Young got pulled after the first quarter, so.
Well,
and we won the division and made it to the playoffs, and San Francisco won the Super Bowl.
What, 96?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Probably.
Long ass time ago.
Well, maybe we'll have some better luck here this year. Yeah, Dave comes from Florida, so he's coming all the way up to the Union States to check out a Vikings game at home, and all of us from Purple and Scold Media will be there. So that's got to be a win. That's got to be in the bag. Now,
it's got to be a win, or I'm quitting life. In fact,
yeah,
I'm done. I don't know. This is my trip of the year. So
all my eggs are in this particular basket as well. Next, we got a short week going to Lincoln Financial Field at the Eagles. Week 2 again, just like it was week 2 last year. And last year it was 24-7, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they didn't score the second half, Johnny.
So
that Donishell defense shelled them that second half.
Shelled them. A little bit of shell shock. So I think it'll be a more competitive game, but I'm not sure if you've seen much of Jalen Carter in the preseason for Philadelphia, but I don't particularly like Ezra Cleveland's chances against a guy like that. So I don't know. I just don't think we match up well still, particularly in the trenches. That game worries me. It's only week 2, so Rashad Penny will probably still be healthy for the Eagles, and that run game will probably be pretty tough to defend. I think it's a little more competitive, but I've got the Eagles winning this one. 1-1 to start the year. You and I were talking before we started recording again what these red things mean below this. The only thing I can think of is maybe that's because they're honoring Kyle Rudolph's retirement as a Viking in week 3. But I don't know what else.
Maybe it's not Sunday night or anything like that. It's not like a red night game.
Oh, maybe it means prime time.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Oh, okay. It probably is for Sunday because it doesn't do that for Monday or Thursday. That would make sense, actually. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just a prime time. Eric Kendricks, homecoming. I got the Vikings winning this one. That Vikings Chargers game, Jefferson's 2020, Jefferson's rookie year was really, or 2021, it might have been even. But that Vikings Chargers game was a blast. We have a listener on Necessary Roughness who's a Chargers guy, and I always, lovingly call them AFC Vikings because they Viking a lot. They're very volatile like us, and they always are trying to lose the game. I don't know. It's going to be the first one to lose it, I think, between these two. And
Yeah, with that game when they lost to us at home, they made real bad time management decisions. Head coach is still the same head coach, and Herbert didn't play very well. He didn't impress me that game.
Nope. It'll
So
be
maybe he doesn't do
it'll
good at
be
the
good
US
television.
Bank.
It'll be good television. We're at US Bank. Staley's still coaching. You've got Kellen Moore finally calling the plays for
The guy
Herbert.
the guy that got fired. Didn't he get fired as a head coach? Or
No,
he didn't get
no,
hired.
no.
Nobody wanted him.
He didn't get hired. Yeah, he went back to Dallas to OC.
Nobody wanted him.
OC for the Chargers now. Yeah, but anything's gonna be an upgrade from Joe Lombardi for the Chargers, so they should still be good. I like that chance there. Then we got another former Viking we're playing in Week 4. We got an Adam Thielen reunion, and I think we're gonna beat the brakes off of them. What do you think about Carolina?
Brakes will be broken off of them. Although I don't think they're going to be. I think they're going to be competitive like they were last year. I don't think maybe
feisty.
even a slightly better. Rookie quarterbacks. I don't care if you're, supposedly the best quarterback in the draft. I don't know. He's starting, right? Their quarterback.
Yeah.
So rookie quarterback. I'll take them all day, no matter who they are.
Yeah, it was funny before they even drafted Bryce. Thielen said something about how excited he was to play with Andy Dalton because he'll be their backup now. He was just coping with going to a shitty team. So when we talked about this, I came out hot and I said we'd beat the Chiefs at home.
Change your mind,
but like you, I've been just trying to find a couple losses for us because we're gonna lose some. And I mean, what I did was something very Vikings in my initial prediction. I was like, all right, we're gonna beat the Chiefs at home and then lay an egg in Chicago the following week. But I think I'm gonna keep the Chiefs win. And I think we're going to ride high into Soldier Field. And then I think the Niners actually have come around by week 7. I thought it would be a little too early in the season for them to have really found their groove and kind of figured out what they're doing at quarterback and, had everything ironed out. Granted, Kyle Shanahan said that Brock Purdy would literally need to melt to lose his starting quarterback job. Like actually melt like a witch.
Don't get him wet.
But either way, it's going to be another tough group to deal with. It's going to be Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead up front against our offensive line, particularly on the interior with Hargrave. It's going to be really tough to contend with. We're going to be really Shanahan-y, though, on offense. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think we'll be running a lot of the same stuff. So in addition to that, I think both defenses will be pretty familiar with what we're doing on offense. It could be kind of an ugly Monday night game. But I have the Niners coming into US Bank and taking that one. And then I don't see us losing to the Pack. Really, I think we'll sweep them this year. But I did just tweet as well. Don't everybody just disregard the Packers all the way yet. The bones of that roster are still pretty good. 2 running backs are really good. They've got a pretty good O-line. The defense has a lot of talent if they're able to play aggressive. And Joe Barry last year did a lot of Donatello kind of stuff with them, and I think held them back a little bit. But he's coming into year 2 now. So we moved on from our guy who did that. They kept him, so now it'll be year 2 in that scheme. So you should see a little bit of improvement on the defensive side. But I think the Vikings are just going to be really good. Any pushback on the Packers or the Niners games at all?
So I have us losing to Kansas City and beating the Niners.
Okay.
And I think it's because of the quarterback situation. Honestly, I mean,
yeah,
quarterbacks get figured out in year 2, especially if they have some success the first year. It always seems like, especially the guy with you just never thought was going to be a starter, comes out in second year, or has a one good year out of his life, like a Casey Keenum, and then the rest of the years are pretty mediocre at best. It would just really take them going on the road, going a couple time zones over, playing in a hostile environment to rattle a young guy like that. And I think we're going to be hitting our stride about that game. And then beating the Packers, I don't. Although they may be better than I think, but I don't know. We're better than them. We got more weapons than them. Our defense is going to be better. We're going to be causing turnovers, and that's what I hear. Their quarterback, the last time he started, liked to do. I think he threw like 22 picks the last time he was a starting quarterback in college. So I'm going with that.
Yeah, that's a good call. This is another game where I found a loss for us. I think the Falcons are a team that could really run it down our throats. With that offensive line, they got some mean offensive linemen, particularly on the right side with Caleb McGarry and Chris Lindstrom. I like Bijan a lot. I think he'll be featured. Tyler Algier had 1,000 yards last year. He's still on the roster. Cordell Patterson's still on the roster. They've got Jonnu Smith, who came over and followed Arthur Smith, who will play some H-back. He's a good run blocker. Any receiver they have on the field is going to be like 6'5", with Mac Hollins and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. That's going to be a team that can run the ball. And, if we're not able to get them into second and long, third and longs, I don't think we're able to really get Flores on them. And that's a matchup I'm not particularly high on. Have you thought much about the Falcons matchup?
Although I don't think it's a very friendly place to play. I don't think they have. I just don't think they have enough to beat us. I just think our offense is. We can outscore a team. We can outscore a team, keep the ball away from them, and if we're outscoring them, then they're not running the ball, and that's where we'll win. I just think you're trying to. I just think you're grasping for straws to find a loss for us.
It's just such a good team. You got to fight it. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the Vikings are just so overwhelmingly favored. But yeah, I don't know. That's just one of those teams that I feel like might.
I do think it's a tough place to play, and they're going to give us some grief. But
yeah, and we'll move the ball on them as well. Like I could see it going kind of like the Giants game, where they're just methodical up and down the field, and we're scoring points too, but they just get the ball last and grind it out on us. I don't think the Saints game will be particularly close. Their weapons are decent, a pretty good offensive line still, and a pretty solid defense, but I think they'll just be really average. And at home against a team where we have some bad blood, I think this is a win. I think Denver's a win, even though listen, we got to beat Sean Payton. It's screw Sean Payton for life. We gotta
my hate follows him everywhere. Everywhere.
Yep. So back-to-back weeks, we get to beat Sean Payton's team, and then we get to beat Sean Payton's team. So I'm liking that. And then I think we roll into the bye strong, beating the Bears. I think what Flores is going to throw at Justin Fields is going to really fluster him. You're going to get a couple fluke plays where he evades the blitz and gets a lot of yards on a scramble. But their defense is just really, really sorry. particularly on the front. And I think we're really just going to be able to dictate the tempo of this game. And I think we dominate the Bears in both matchups, frankly.
If we can contain, anytime we're playing the Bears, if we can contain on the outside and get a rush up the middle, that he is the absolute horrible pocket passer. He's the worst in the league at pocket passing.
On non-scrambles, he was dead last in EPA per drop back. So if he's not scrambling, it's not an efficient play for him to drop back and throw the football.
I think Dean Lowry can get a push up, can get a rush. He is a good bull rush. He can collapse a pocket, but then we can start putting guys in the middle, like a Daniil Hunter or a Davenport or a blitz or anything, something up the middle to get pressure. And who knows, maybe Tonga is the guy. We just don't know. It's one of those unknowns right now. We like him.
Yeah.
He's got fire. He's got a high motor, but we'll see. But what'd you do here? Denver. I had us losing that game just because it's later in the year. It could be cold, and it's a
Mile High
elevation.
Yeah,
I had us
I
losing
could
that
see
game.
that being a loss. I could see that being a loss there. So we're 9-3 going into the bye.
And also the gods hate me, and they're gonna let Sean Payton beat us, and we hate it.
I would hate it so much. I think the Raiders are going to be awful. So
could be awful.
It's kind of my whole thought process there. Max Crosby,
most optimistic of the two, Raiders fans I know. The highest guy says 8 wins. The guy Trust Morris says 5.
Yeah.
Potentially at the highest he says it was 5 wins.
Yeah, I think it'll be bad. Bengals is a tough matchup. I feel like on the road at the Bengals.
I had us losing that game. Similar reason to Denver, but it will be cold probably there.
Mm-hmm.
And but I mean, I don't think they're any too much better than us. I think we match up as far as offensive weapons. I don't think it's that.
It might be advantage.
Could have a
Vikings
similar defense. Who knows?
Yes, and it might be advantage Vikings against their secondary. They lost both their starting safeties to free agency. It could get interesting. Their pass rush is going to be tough to contend with. Their offense is obviously a juggernaut as well, but so are we. I think it'll be a fun game regardless. But I found another loss for us there.
I did. I had us losing just because it was the road late in the year in the cold.
Yep. Yeah, same thing. I need Detroit Lions fans to shut up. I want this game to be even earlier in the season, and I want us to destroy them. I don't know if you've heard a lot of Lions fans blabbing, but it's been a rough offseason for it.
Are they louder than Bears fans? Holy shit.
Bears fans too. I've had the least issue with Packers fans out of the division this season.
They at least are sensible. The Packer fans actually know what they got.
Exactly. Lions
we're going to be – we could be good, but we don't know. It all depends on our quarterback.
Yep, they're very level-headed. Very level-headed.
These other guys are like, oh, it's our year, finally, the Pack. No, we're the division winners, guys. We're the king of the North, so
yep. Detroit has never won the NFC North. The last time they won the division, it was called the NFC Central. And the Lions will continue to
JFK has only missed one of their playoff games.
Yeah.
Kennedy has since his death, he's only missed one of the Lions playoff games.
And it was 1991 or 93. Either 93 or 91. Or it was 91 that was the last playoff
Barry Sanders hated the Lions so bad he retired and didn't want to play for them anymore.
So did Calvin Johnson.
Same deal.
Way to go, guys. So at this point,
next I'm on St. Brown. He'll be the next guy to do it.
At this point, I've got a Packers win at home, and then the division's in the bag. We rest starters, give the Lions a pity win.
That's exactly what I did. I say we win the division. We actually clinch the division. The Lions win.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, we beat the Lions. We clinched the division with the Packers win, and then we rest.
Yep. All right. Well, we've got 12-5 for the Minnesota Vikings, so you
Exactly
can
what I had
take
before,
that to the
except
bank.
we flipped I think the Chargers, not the Chargers. We
Chiefs
have
and
4 different
Niners,
wins here. Chiefs and
then we flipped like Falcons and Broncos. You and I think.
yeah, I had the San Fran, and then you had
Okay.
and then the Chiefs game, and then those other 2. So we just flipped
Yeah.
4 different games.
Yeah. Outside of that, though, great minds. So, if you're listening at home, bet the over. I think the Vikings over under is like 8.5 right
Yeah,
now,
it's ridiculously low.
which is ridiculous. Bet the over, smash the over, put the mortgage on the over. Vikings win 12 games. You heard it here first on the inaugural episode of Bite Size Vikes. Dave, thanks a lot for joining me. Again, you can follow all of Dave's work on Minnesota Sports Talk, part of Purple and Scold Media. You can catch he and I and others at Skull Fest this Saturday at the Northeast Palace in Minneapolis, talking all things Vikings. You can catch me every Tuesday at 8 Central right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. Our flagship NFL program, Necessary Roughness, will be weekly. We've got a big show tomorrow previewing the whole NFL just like we did here. And Dave, maybe next week you could jump on with me for a segment and we can once we know we're correct about week 1, maybe we can do our playoff predictions for a segment, because you can also do that on here, which is really fun.
Yeah, I'll be able to tell after week 1. Guaranteed.
Oh, spoilers. Oh no.
Oh.
Just kidding. I haven't redone this in a while. So
it's
a couple months
Vikings
ago,
versus the Bengals in the Super Bowl.
take it to the bank. A couple months ago, it was Vikings Bengals. We'll see how I end up this time. But thanks again,
2
Dave.
teams who have not won the Super Bowl. One has lost 4, and the other one's lost 3.
And that's the fun part about it. It's almost as good as Vikings Bills. But thank you all for listening at home. You'll get 2 episodes of Bite Size Vikes every single week going forward this season. We'll have game previews and game reviews every week. So here's our full season preview. We'll have a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game preview to your screens at home by Friday. We'll be recording that Thursday night. Joined by my co-host going forward, Josh Limasan. You might remember him from the Daily Skull podcast, but he'll be on with me just about every week. So you can look forward to that and all of our other NFL team podcasts right here on Bite Size Sports. Keep an eye out for those. Thanks again, guys. Take it easy. And Skull.